welcome back to what I believe is one of the most classic illustrations of the capacity to take a single point focus on a text and to diversify it into completely different meanings. We have a Mishnah, and the Mishnah, when looked at initially through the eyes of the Rashbam, looks like one thing. Through the eyes of Tosafot, looks like something completely different. And I'll go through the Mishnah like the Rashbam, and then I'll go through the Mishnah like the Tosafot, and you'll recognize that actually two Mishnahs evolve. Now, one of the most important things about the study of Gemara is that ultimately what happens is once the text has been laid down, it almost gets a life of its own. And it no longer has a single identity, but its identity can be expressed through any legitimate perspective. And provided it fits into the words of the text and is logically sound, if the text can hold two readings, so then those two readings now become simultaneous realities of what the text means, even though they may be mutually exclusive. Let's go through the Mishnah, through the eyes of the Rashbam, and you'll see one Mishnah emerge, and then through the eyes of Tosafot, and another Mishnah will emerge. Here he is like the Rashbam. Heviu lefonov, they brought in front of him, according to Rashbam, harakos, the vegetables. Metabel b'chazeres, he should take the lettuce, assuming that the vegetable they brought in front of him was lettuce, ad shemagila parperes apas, and he has to do that. This lettuce is eaten before. Metabel chazeres means he dips the lettuce into something, but not charoses, He dips the lettuce into something, not charoses, because charoses isn't around, because all that's been brought in front of him is the lettuce. And this happens until he gets to the maror, which is eaten after the matzah. That's what the Mishnah means. Then, for the first time, then they bring in what we'd call the Seder plate, or the shulchan, the table. And on that has the 5 things that you need for the Seder plate: the matzah, the chazeres, which is the lettuce or the maror, the charesis, and the two cooked foods, which we customary do is an egg and a shank bone. Even though chareis is not mitzvah, it still appears at this point at what we'd call the Seder plate or the shulchan. Rabbi he argues, he says it is a mitzvah. And the mikdash they brought in front of him the body of the Pesach. In terms of the last 2 lines of the Mishnah, so that's going to be unanimously agreed upon. But now look at the way that Tosafot sees the Mishnah. That was all the Rashbam. According to Tosafot, they brought in front of him the shulchan with everything on it. He takes off the shulchan, from that shulchan, the Seder plate, he removes the chazeres and he eats it. And he does that before the official eating of maror, which happens after matzahs. So now the problem with Tosafot is they've already brought the table in front of him with everything on. Why does the Mishnah now repeat they brought in front of him the table with everything on? According to Tosafot, because in between these 2 parts of the Mishnah, there's invisible action which is not discussed. The table is removed. Then Tosafot says, well, why would you remove the table? And the answer is because the kids will say, hey, I thought we just started our meal. Where did the table go? And you'll say, oh, great, fantastic. So what happens is, then they'll bring back the table, and the kid will say, oh, why are you bringing back the table? So, because we're going to eat maror again, or we're going to eat again. And the kid will say, but why are you doing it twice? And that's the origin of one of the 4 kashas, which is every night we dip once, and tonight we dip twice. How did the kid know that? Because they'd taken the table away and they brought it back. And he said, why are you bringing it back? Because we're going to do another dipping. According to the Rashbam, the table was never initially removed because it wasn't there to begin with. So according to the Rashbam, what prompts the child to ask? Why is he going to ask? The child is to ask. So what's the child going to ask? According to Rashbam, the child asks because he sees you eating a vegetable randomly outside the context of a meal. There's no table. Why are you suddenly eating this piece of lettuce? What are you doing? And then you're going to say to him, oh no, because we're going to eat again. He'll say, well, why are you eating twice? So the motive that arouses the curiosity of the child, according to the Rashbam, is a very different one to that of Tosafot. So what comes out really is, according to the Tosafot, the Mishnah says, you brought in front of him the table, Tosafot, then he takes off the table the lettuce and eats it before he eats maror. Then you take the table away, then you bring it back again, and then all these things on them, including charosis, and then there's a machlokes, is charosis a mitzvah or not, and then the Mishnah concludes with you bring in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, the body of the Korban Pesach. According to the Rashbam, you brought in front of him the vegetables. He ate the vegetables before he ate the maror. Then you bring in the table for the first time, and then you continue with the Seder. Now, an interesting nuance different comes out. According to Tosafot, according to the Rashbam, when it says you dip in the lettuce, what are you dipping it into? Well, according to the Rashbam, since the table is not there, you're just dipping it into salt water, whatever you want. But you're not dipping it into charosis. According to Tosafot, the charosis is already there, so you dip it into the charosis. So actually, even what you dip it into is different. Now, Tosafot has...
Dipping.
Sorry?
The first dipping.
The first dipping. According to the Rashbam, the first dipping, all you have in front of you is lettuce. You haven't got the whole table, so there's no charosis around. So when it says metabel, b'chazeres, it means dip it into anything. According to Tosafot, it means metabel into the charosis. So what happens is, as you become more attuned to the different ways of learning the Mishnah, two different Seder nights start to emerge out of a single Mishnah, depending on your starting point and how you fill in the missing words which are existence in the text.
Was there like, I'm sure if it's not germane for now to skip it, but was there like a schism where like, at one point everyone followed one derech, and then all of a sudden someone said, oh no, we're changing it, and now we're going to show you why we're changing it. No, at one point everyone had to say, bring the table. Okay, fine. Oh no, don't bring the table, we start the karpas. Like,
that's a fundamental question. In other words, any dispute that's written in the Mishnah, one could ask, well, what did your Zayda do? The question becomes most profound there's a dispute between Rabbeinu Tam and Rashi as to, in your tefillin, what is the order of the arrangement of the different sections in your tefillin, your head tefillin. There are 4 boxes, and there's a dispute between Rabbeinu Tam and Rashi. How do you order those 4 boxes?
It's also which direction, right? But they don't do that anymore, right?
Right. So then Rashi has one order and Rabbeinu Tam has a different order. So the obvious question is, Rabbeinu Tam was a grandson of Rashi. He says, well, just open up the tefillin from previous generations and you'll see exactly what the order is. This is the first time that this machlokes is mentioned. So the answer is, and this is, I think, a fundamental answer, that our job is to be exceptionally honest with our examining and analysis of the text. And if we discover in the text, and it's thoroughly and rigidly strong, authentic, and provable approach, that approach may not have existed beforehand, we're almost compelled to subscribe to the approach that we've had. We've discovered something. We are bound to acknowledge that discovery. Now, a new question. If there's a majority of halachic authorities that oppose it, can you still follow it? No, you may not be able to follow it because of a different, separate issue, which is you go after the majority. But any later discovery based on the thorough and sincere understanding of the text becomes legitimate, even though there's not a historical precedent for it.
That's based on the fact there's like there's 13 different methodologies how to understand things, and I followed this one and got to this conclusion.
As we said before, that the perspective of Torah is quantum and not linear. An easy way to illustrate it. It's an easy way to illustrate it. If I hold up my watch to you, and I say, Binyamin, what do you see when you look at my watch?
The time.
That's so strange. That's so strange because I'm looking at my watch and I have no idea what the time is. Now, who's right?
Both of us.
Both of us. Because we're standing at different positions, we see different things. The nature of Torah is we all occupy different mental perspectives. On the deepest level, We all have different routes to our spiritual selves, which give us access to an aspect. It's almost as if the Torah is in the center, we're surrounded in a circle. So when everyone looks at the Torah, they see something different, which is privy to their particular soul. And that's why when the Jews received the Torah in Har Sinai, the first of the Ten Commandments, is spoken in the singular. Hashem says, Anochi I, Hashem Olekecha, your God, singular. Not your God, plural, which because in Hebrew you differentiate. This is Hashem Elekechem. And Hashem Elekecha, I'm your God, and I'm your God, and I'm your God, and I'm your God. Because on Sinai, when the Torah was given, it wasn't that there was a single Torah given. Or there was a single Torah given. But it wasn't that there was, but there was. The Torah given was a single Torah. But there were 600,000, let's say, people there, and each one was standing at a different position on every level, and he saw his access, he saw his insight. He had a different window into Torah than the person next to him. So we all have, it's a tefillah that we say every Shabbos. We're saying, Chelkeinu b'Soresecha, give us our portion in Torah. Meaning we have a portion. We have a point of access that we are the only ones that are privy to. And we have to strive to discover that on every level. And that's the beauty and the individuality of the statement of the Mishnah in Sanhedrin. It says, Chayav Adam Loimar Bishvili Niver Olam. A person is obligated to say, the world was created for me, not in a selfish sense, but in an empowering sense, that there's something that I can contribute to the world that no one in the history of time ever has or ever will.
That's amazing.
Yeah. What the Rabbi just said now is like, stop, change someone's life, stop. That's it. It's worth the entry fee, just the last couple sentences.
Great. Beautiful.
And inspiration to all.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So that draws to a close the description of how this diversity occurs in the Mishnah, just between two Rishonim, the Rashbam and the other Rishonim, the Rashbam and the Rashi. But we actually have, in the Gemara, two radically different perspectives about what the Mishnah is talking about. So I'm going to go through the Gemara again. I'll just give you a brief introduction. One of the most spoken about things in the Western world, it's been spoken about for a very long time in the Eastern world, is the idea of mindfulness. Mindfulness meditation. It moved from the periphery of society in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s to the central point of society certainly in the last decade. Major corporations have got meditation rooms. Meditation is no longer a weird thing that people do. It's looked upon, it's been so well researched that people now know it's just brilliant for your brain, brilliant for your hormones, brilliant for your anxiety, brilliant for everything. John Kabat-Zinn, who actually coined the phrase mindfulness, runs his MBSR, mindfulness-based stress. John Kabat-Zinn. He's a Jewish person. There are those that say his original name was John Kabachkin. Makes sense. But Kabat-Zinn sounds far more appropriate if you're going to be teaching mindfulness. And he's got this thing called MBSR, mindfulness-based stress release. No, something else I've forgotten. But it's called MBSR, and it runs in almost 100 hospitals throughout America, because it's no longer, it's no longer a thing on the side. It's like it's looked upon as a real, legitimate, mental, physical healing agent.
At one point, it was an outline. Like nobody would like.
Weird. Like, what are you? Like, you're like like you're a weird person. It's like in the 60s it was weird, but now it's like completely mainstream. And what is this question about mindfulness? Essentially, it's very simply expressed. Mindfulness is being right here, right now. Mm-hmm. Now, you think, well, of course, like, where else would I be? And the answer is everywhere. Because as the Baal Shem Tov says, you are where your mind is. You're where your thoughts take you. And if your thoughts are now currently taking you to the shopping, or to the future, or to some horrible prediction of the future, or some distant memory of the past, that's where you are. So actually being right here, right now, isn't as simple as it is, as you would have thought. So now, that forms a bit of a background to us again. Because what we're going to be discussing is how can you actually harness the spiritual energy of a mitzvah? How do you get there? And we have two possible options on the spectrum, and then we're going to understand, is this relevant to some notion of Jewish mindfulness in the performance of mitzvahs? So on the one side of the spectrum, you could look at the most robotic, material, unthinking, simple physical movement, a physical action. Now, certain mitzvot involve physical actions. For example, putting on your tefillin is a physical action. You take these two leather-attached boxes and you place them on your bicep and on your fontanelle, and then you wrap them up. Now, you can do that act mindlessly, completely mindlessly. You wake up in the morning and you put it on, and that's it. You can do the action. You can do the act of putting on tzitzit. You don't have to think. You're just like, you're putting on your vest and then you're putting on tzitzit, and that's it. That's what you do. That's on the one side of the spectrum. On the other side of the spectrum, far, far away, you could theoretically have all the spiritual intentions and awarenesses and knowledge. And before you put on your tefillin, you start to meditate before it, because you don't want to just rush into it. And you start to reckon, what is the hand, what is the heart, the field of action, the seat of emotion, the seat of the passionate experiential self. And I'm going to be able to unite the two by placing this box and what's in the box. The box describes the unifying force of the one ingredient in the universe, which is permanent and eternal, and that is the energetic presence of the creator of all world that suffuses every molecule with his brilliant spiritual light. And I'm feeling that on my hands, and when I act, I want to act in coherence. I want to align my body, my actions, I want to align my emotions, and then I place it on the seat of my intellect, and I want to align my thinking so that my perspectives, my feelings, my actions are completely and totally aligned to the perfect divine will. And I meditate upon that, and every moment I get more and more enthused until eventually, with trepidation, I pick up and I place it upon my bicep facing my heart, and I feel a rushing through energy of spiritual light going through my body. And as I go through the 7 steps, I meditate on what they are, what's this Kabbalistic, the 7 spheres, as they go down to the last one, and then I place it on my hand as I get ready to place it onto the seat of my intellect, the crown of my head, and it literally becomes a crown, and it opens up. It's an upside down shin, which is a root to designate the fact that I am rooted in a higher world, and I'm an upside down tree. My roots are there, and I feel it, and I feel the spiritual energy going through me and down and through my spine and leading down into the lower realms of my body, and I become on fire. That's the other side.
What listening to?
That's the other side, meaning those are the two poles.
Which one do you do every day?
Okay, I mean, I'm not going to say, it could be too revealing, but probably somewhere in the middle, all right? So now, when you've got those two sides, the question is, what's the baseline requirement for the fulfillment of the mitzvah? Is it enough just to do the perfunctory act, or do you need more? And if you need more, how much more do you need? The way that this arrives at us right now in this moment is in the simple act of eating lettuce. Now, many of us eat lettuce. Is there anything deeply, mystically symbolic about eating lettuce? I think not. It's a great, healthy snack. It's got good greenage, and you can, it doesn't have many calories. That's good stuff. Lettuce is good stuff. If you're a little bit cold in the world of Chinese medicine, don't eat lettuce. But that's Chinese medicine. But lettuce is good. So eating lettuce, is there anything mitzvah? Nah, lettuce is lettuce. Well, is it? What about if you're eating lettuce on the 15th of Nisan after nightfall? Ooh. Well, then lettuce is no longer lettuce. Lettuce is maror. Maror, the bitter herbs that we eat on the Pesach night. So I'm sitting there on the 15th of Nisan, and what happens if I'm chilling and I think, oh my gosh, I know it's going to be matzah soon, but I'm peckish. I need a snack. And I think, this is amazing. There's so much lettuce flying around. I don't know why everyone went crazy about the lettuce. Do you know what? Oh, this is good. And this is good lettuce. What's happened? Well, I've eaten lettuce. The question is, lettuce, yes, I've eaten. Ma'od Thamad, but have I eaten Maror? Comes along Reish Lakish and he says, I'll prove to you from our Mishnah that what you did was zero, nothing. You ate lettuce. But it looks like maror, it tastes like maror, it feels like maror. Nah, it's lettuce. So when's the maror going to come? That's going to come after the matzahs. And the goal of the Tana telling me that the first vegetable you ate, which we know you eat in order to awaken, we think, the curiosity of the children, is not for that reason at all. The reason why the Tana taught me you ate lettuce, he was referring to a situation where you simply had a snack. And the question is, does that snack count for your maror? And the answer is absolutely not. Because how do we know that? Because it says later on you have to eat maror again. Would it be that it counted? You would be exempt from eating further maror. So we have an unequivocal proof that mitzvos ain't strichas kavana. Mitzvos strichas kavana. Mitzvos require intention. Without intention, eating lettuce is lettuce. With intention, it's maror. Good?
Got it.
That's what Reish Lakish says. Okay, so that's Reish Lakish's sentiment, and therefore, according to Reish Lakish, the Mishnah actually, it comes out, doesn't discuss or doesn't introduce a notion that you have to dip twice in order to arouse the curiosity of the children. Because according to Reish Lakish, the first eating of lettuce was purely accidental. You happened to be peckish, so you picked up a piece of lettuce and you ate it.
So why would anyone ask on that?
What do you mean?
Why would
Exactly. According to Reish Lakish, would there be a question of why are you dipping twice? It's not inherent. We'll have to see how that works out.
But why do you use the word accidental? What if it's just a different purpose? Like you're eating lettuce for a different intention.
I mean accidental as opposed to intention for the mitzvah. Correct. Okay. So that's Reish Lakish. I want you to see that in the words of the Gemara.
You see the proof as well. She made a bracha to eat lettuce.
But Adame didn't make alachilas maror.
Right. So that was the intention.
Lettuce.
Yeah, he said Adama.
Right.
So when he ate it, he said, I'm making a bracha on
That's
this,
why
which is
people
lettuce.
do celery or something that can't be.
There you go. Good. Okay, so now let's see it in the words. Okay? Are you ready? We're on Daf Kuf Yudalad Amud Beis. Amar Reish Lakish. Says Reish Lakish, Zois Oimeres. This means to say, meaning the line in the Mishnah that it uses in the first case, eating lettuce prior to the eating of maror, this tells me mitzvos strichos kavana. This tells me mitzvahs require intention. And therefore, Kevan deloi ba'idan chiyuv de maror. Kevan, since deloi, that it's not ba'idan chiyuva, it's not at the time of the obligation, de maror, of eating the bitter herbs. Who da'achile, that's when he's eating it. So, as Binyamin said, but boye priadama hu da'achile. He only makes a boye priadama, he doesn't make achilas maror. The dilma, and perhaps lo ikavein le maror, and perhaps he had no intention to eat it for the sake of maror. Hilkach, that's why boy lemahader latpule the shame maror. That's why, therefore, he's required to go back and to eat it a second time for the sake of maror. Because if it would have arisen on your mind, mitzvah loy boy kavana, if it would have arisen on your mind that the mitzvah does not require kavana, lama loch trei tibule, why would you need to eat maror twice? Va tavil le chade zimna, you've already eaten it once. And therefore you've done your obligation. If mitzvahs wouldn't need the kavana, you ate lettuce. And if eating lettuce is all that's required, because you don't need to have any kind of intention, you just need to have a physical act. You've done the physical act, you fulfilled your mitzvah, there's no reason to dip it a second time. You see what's inherent in Reish Lakish's reasoning is that the only motive, it appears, the motive to eat it twice is not to arouse some curiosity amongst the children, but simply to guarantee that you fulfilled your obligation. Now, I'm just going to go a bit further in the
You know
Gemara.
why he doesn't care to arouse the curiosity is because he already knows that they arouse the curiosity from taking away the Seder plate and putting it back. Therefore, it's already shlug. That part is done. Meaning, if you're trying to get the kid to ask a question, he asks the question. Now you're.
He's got another way of doing it.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, good. So now let's see.
The obligation of that part.
Yes, good. So that's one presentation of the Mishnah, right? That's one presentation of the Mishnah. Now we're going to have a contrasting presentation or a disputing presentation. The Gemara challenges Reish Lakish. And this is going to be part 2 of the Gemara. So part 1 of the Gemara is Reish Lakish presenting his argument that the Mishnah is talking about you ate the maror without any intention of fulfilling the mitzvah, and therefore you need to eat it again because you required intention to fulfill the mitzvah. Says the Gemara, mimai. Who says? Who says from what? Dilma, ready, perhaps. Dilma l'olam, perhaps ready. Mitzvahs ein tzrichas kavana. Maybe mitzvahs don't require kavana. Oh, if mitzvahs don't require kavana, so then why do you need to dip twice? You already filled your mitzvah, why are you doing it again? And as to what you said, Reish Lakish, then why do I dip twice? I have an answer to that. In order that there should be a sign for the children to ask. So the opposing opinion to Reish Lakish says, what's your reasoning, Reish Lakish? If you ate the lettuce first and you had fulfilled your obligation, you wouldn't have eaten. Wouldn't have to have eaten it the second time. So what's Reish Lakish's reasoning? His imperative is that since it says you have to eat the lettuce that you already ate again, it must be that the first time you ate it, you didn't fulfill your mitzvah. Comes along the opposing opinion and says, not true. The reason why you need to eat it again is actually you have fulfilled your mitzvah. Because all you need to fulfill your mitzvah is simply to consume the greens. And you did that. So why are you eating the second time? To arouse the curiosity of the children. And it's no proof as to whether mitzvahs require kavana or not. You could always maintain mitzvahs do not require kavana. And over here, there's a secondary reason which compels you to eat maror twice. V'chi tema, and if you ask, says...
How can you make a bracha on the same item twice? 2 different brachas?
Because it's 2 different actions. It's 2 different intents. In other words, let's think of a precedent to that.
So that would prove full.
You could say the bracha.
The mere fact that that's a proof right there. If
Correct.
You're making a dama on it, it satisfies it partially.
Excellent point. In other words, what you're saying, Moshe, which is a brilliant point. According to this opposing opinion, who's arguing with Reish Lakish, when you ate the maror for the first time, when you ate the lettuce for the first time, you fulfilled your obligation. Because all you need to do is eat. Which means, when you eat it a second time, you can't make the bracha of achilas maror.
Right.
So your seder would be a little bit strange. Because you'd eat the matzah and then you'd eat the maror, but then it's not maror because you already fulfilled the mitzvah of eating maror. According to Reish Lakish, you'd make it.
You also if you ate the matzah, that means you already washed and you already made the hamotzi, which means that it's even further of a proof,
right?
Because that covers everything always.
Right.
But like the mitzvah of tzitzit, we've split that mitzvah, which is really listed only as one action in the Torah. We split that into 2 actions: your tzitzit katan and your tzitzit gadol. So
yeah, it's a different bracha though.
It's a different bracha,
and it's a different actual item.
Right, but really the mitzvah is only just wear it. And so why do we make 2 brachot on the same action?
Answer. If you're going to be putting on your talis cotton and the talis gadol, you only make 1 bracha.
And which one do you
You're on the second one, on the talis. You set up tzitzis. You don't make mitzvah tzitzis. You only make that if you're only going to be putting on your tzitzis.
Correct. That's why people postpone in the morning and they don't make it before they go to shul.
Right.
So if you put on your talis katan, you don't make a bracha. On
if you're going to be wearing a talis gadol,
you don't put it on the first one. You don't make a bracha on the first one. But if you know you're putting on a gadol shortly,
so you don't make a bracha on the first katan.
No.
So this is some ways are a similar reflection of the same mitzvah, right?
Right. Exactly. So the question is, so why is there one bracha for a talis cotton and another bracha for talis gadol? We know that the talis gadol bracha works for a talis
Different
cotton as
intention.
well, right?
Yeah.
One's to
Different
protect you, and
stats.
one's to elevate your davening.
They're different intention, and also because they're different kinds of garments. So the bracha on talis gadol is lisatef petzitzis, which means to wrap yourself around with them.
Right.
And generally speaking, your talis cotton is not something you wrap around you.
Where?
But in the Torah, right? Is it written that there is two mitzvos? This one that is wrapped around you, and there's one that is
It's a single mitzvah.
okay.
It's got two ways that you can keep, two different items of mitzvah that you can keep this mitzvah with. You can do it with a shawl, or you can do it with a vest-like garment.
Right.
But ultimately, the mitzvah in the Torah is to whenever you have a four-cornered garment, regardless of its size and shape.
Right.
So it's one mitzvah.
Right. One mitzvah. So, but what if you don't have a talis gadol? You have something else that you want to use as your talis gadol. Can you? What I'm saying is that it doesn't fit into the same structure of what might be wrapping yourself in this giant talit is. For example, a poncho. Let's say you're putting on a poncho. Kind of fits in between that idea of a talis katan and a talis gadol.
In other words, if let's say you put on your talis cotton and then you put on the poncho, and the poncho's got four corners,
Yes.
and it requires, and
Right.
there's tzitzis on it,
Right.
and it requires a bracha, do you say lisatef on the poncho or not? That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that question. Okay, good. Tom, are you with me?
100%.
Okay, so now, we're at the point in time when we've got the opposing view to Reish Lakish that he says, really, mitzvahs do not require kavana. And why do you need to have two stages of eating maror? Because even though you fulfilled your mitzvah on the first stage, but in order to arouse the curiosity of the children, you do it again. Now, v'chi tema, the Gemara asks, this opinion asks the question on himself. V'chi tema, if you'll say, im kain lishma'in and shayirakos, you could ask a question and you'd say, well, if that's true, why did it teach me, if it's only there, if the reason why you're eating it twice is to arouse the curiosity of the children, so then why in the world do you need to teach it with lettuce? Why didn't you teach, if the whole point is to teach that you have to have two dippings to arouse the curiosity of the children, don't make it complicated. Teach a case where you start off by eating potatoes and then later on you eat lettuce. Why do you have to say lettuce as an example of the vegetable that you use? I'm just going to qualify this. Reish Lakish is really kind of good on this. Reish Lakish says, according to me, that the goal of the Mishnah is to teach you that mitzvahs do require kavana. It's inevitable that the Tana needs to teach me that the first vegetable you ate was lettuce, and even so you can eat lettuce again for the sake of maror. So I can justify the choice of the Tana to include lettuce as the vegetable used. But according to you, opposing opinion that says the reason why you're using lettuce is it's just like eating any other the reason why you're using lettuce is as good as any other vegetable because all it's doing is to arouse the curiosity of the children. It's not teaching me some kind of additional chidush that you don't, that you require kavanah for mitzvahs. And actually this is a very awkward Mishnah because you're actually fulfilling your mitzvah of Maror at the wrong point in time. If all you want to do is to teach me that you need to have two vegetable dippings, so teach me potatoes, teach me celery. Why do you have to teach me lettuce? On this, the Gemara answers, I ashma'inan shayirakos, if it would be teaching me other vegetables, hava amina, I would have thought, heichad ika shayirakos, when there are other vegetables around, hu dubo'inan treitibuli, that's when you require two dippings. Aval chazeres lechuda, but if you only have lettuce, loy boy trei tibuli, you would not require two dippings, which makes a lot of sense. Meaning, when do you have the need, or when do you have the mitzvah d'Rabbanan to arouse the curiosity of the children? When you've got potatoes and lettuce, then you should do it twice. But if all you've got is lettuce, I would say save it for the maror. Forgo the arousing the curiosity of the children. This is more important. Doing the mitzvah in the right time, which is after matzahs, that's when you should do it. So why are you compromising the correct fulfillment of the mitzvah for the sake of arousing the curiosity of children? I would have thought, had this Mishnah, according to his opinion, not taught letters, that when all you have is letters, you shouldn't do this arousing the curiosity and should only have it afterwards. Comes along our Tana and teaches, according to this opinion, a massive chiddush. He says, when you have lettuce and that's the only vegetable you have,
that's what you use.
That's what you use it, and it's even worthwhile doing the mitzvah in the right time, which is after matzahs, in order that you could do it twice, in order to rouse the curiosity of the kids. Crazy! Do you understand? In other words, that's how important keeping the children's focus is, that you're willing to compromise on the correct fulfillment of the mitzvah in its ideal sense in order that the children should stay focused.
Now, if there's no children around, can you skip it?
No, because once it becomes instituted, so then it becomes fixed. So now what happens is there's these two diverse Mishnayos. The one Mishnah, which is according to Reish Lakish, is telling me that mitzvahs do require Kavana. According to Reish Lakish, the whole point of the mitzvah is to tell me what kind of intention do I need to know when I perform a mitzvah. It's not enough just to do it. I have to know that I'm doing it. According to the opposing view, it's got nothing to do with that. You can just do a mitzvah by simply performing the act. So why does the Mishnah go ahead and speak about letters? To teach me a crazy chiddush, that even though when you eat the maror for the first time, the letters for the first time, it is your Mitzvah of Maror, and that's out of order. And because you're going to be eating it later on, and you would have thought, save it till later on. No, it's more important to forego the eating of the maror at the right time in order to arouse the curiosity of children. And therefore, there are these two Mishnayos really. Reish Lakish, the Mishnah, is telling me a general law that you always need intent when you perform a mitzvah. And the opposing view is telling me a specific law about the Seder night, that how important it is to arouse the curiosity of children. So there are these two Mishnayos, and they've got radically different conclusions depending on how you go through each stage of the Mishnah and what it's coming to teach me. That is off the charts. That is off the charts. There's this one Mishnah, and this same Mishnah has got, when you look at it this side, it's teaching me a crucial idea. You need to have intention when you perform mitzvahs. When you look at it from this side, it's telling me, chinuch is so important. Educate your children, keep them away, even if it compromises the performance of mitzvahs in their right time, in the right place. Crazy. Craziness. Okay, now, this is obviously something which is typical. Now what I have to do, and this is where our cognitive mind gets turned on. It's much easier and more comfortable to have a single idea that I can just go with. It's far more complex intellectually, but actually also emotionally, to hold two contrasting ideas simultaneously. In other words, the Hebrew word emes, which means reality or truth, is spelled with the first, the middle, and the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, a very famous Gemara in Shabbos. Sheker, which means falsehood, illusion, is the last three letters of the alphabet, save the last one, because you need that for emes. So it's the last three letters. To tell you that emes takes into consideration the side, that side, and everything in between. And sheker is one-sided. Sheker means essentially not what we'd call lies, but narrow-mindedness. That all you see is one specific pathway ahead of you. Sheker, in other words, if you can only ever see one way, it's almost imperative that you're not seeing the reality. You're seeing your own slice of reality, which is a very narrow perspective. The nature of sheker, as expressed in alphabetical order, is not malicious lying and fabrication. It's saying that recognition or a lack of recognition of how limited my narrow my perspective is. Whereas the reality is this breadth of perspective. Now, breadth of perspective means not only I can see many things over the course of space and time, but I can see this opinion, I can see that opinion, I can see that opinion, I can see that opinion, and I can hold all of those opinions simultaneously. And then you say to me, what's right? I'll say to you, well, according to Reish Lakish, this is right. According to the opposing view, that's right. According to Rashbam, that's right. According to Tosafot, but what's right? Well, the right is it depends where you're standing. And then when I do that, I engender inside of myself not only intellectual power and mental plasticity, but I start to understand and grasp that people need their space and time, and that there's nothing objective and generic about the experience of a person, even in the realm of the spiritual world. Going back to our original point, that the Torah is given to each and every one of us individually, and we all have an access point. And the totality of Torah becomes real when all of those access points combine in a unified song. And that's why there's a hint to the relationship between Torah and the Jewish people, even though the Zohar Kodesh says, Kuchabrichu v'oraisa v'Yisrael chadu, the Hashem, the Jewish people and the Torah one, but the words Yisrael, the word Yisrael, the Jew, Yisrael stands for, it's an acronym, Yesh Shishim Ribu Oisres the Torah, which means there are 600,000 letters in the Torah. There are, characteristically speaking, the way that you describe the people is a conglomeration of, or splintered 600,000 souls. So that means every letter in the Torah corresponds to a single soul, which is synonymous to saying every single Jew has his own root in the Torah that's differentiated from every other Jew. So one of the ways of being alert, aware, and conscious is recognizing the diversity. And just because someone sees things differently to me doesn't mean they're wrong, it just means that's his perspective. Now obviously, if the perspective is a distortion, so then he's not just seeing it. Meaning when we go back to our analogy, if I pick up this cup and I say, well, let's go back to my watch, and I pick this up. So when I say to you, what can you see? So when I say to you, Binyamin, look at my watch, and you say to me, you see the face, and I say, well, I don't see the time at all. I just see a strap. But we're both looking at the same watch. But what would be if you said to me, well, I see the porcupine? So then you're not seeing the watch. Then you're just seeing yourself. And this is the tricky part. There's this paradox between objectivity and subjectivity at the same time. You have an objective view from your subjective lens, which means that you're seeing what's really in front of you from the place that only you can see, but you're seeing what's really in front of you. You're not projecting something inside yourself onto it.
That's truth.
That's truth.
Right. When
That's
you're projecting
true.
something that you...
Then you just, that's illusion. That's true. Okay? So that brings to a close where we got to in the Gemara. I want to go through just that last part. We didn't read it inside of the words. The Gemara challenges itself when it says that, let us suggest that mitzvahs do not require Kavana. Uduka Amarat, we're holding 8 lines down, Uduka Amarat, Trei Tibuli Lamali, and the Gemara says to itself, well, and if you say to me, why do I need to up twice? In order you should have a recognized, you should an awareness for the children. So then if so, why did you teach me dafka with lettuce? Just teach it with any random vegetable. The answer is, if I would have taught you with other vegetables, I would have thought, when there are other vegetables, that's when you're required 2 dippings. But when it's just lettuce, loy boy tray tibule, then you wouldn't need to, you'd actually only eat it afterwards. Komash malon comes the Ketana of Achidish, the Ketana of Mishnah to say, Ta'afilu chazeres, even when it's lettuce, and as a result, you're going to be eating it, and you're going to be fulfilling your mitzvah, and it's going to be out of order. But in and tray tibuli, you're still required 2 dippings, kihechi, to lahave, bay, heker tinokas, in order that it should be in it a recognized and arousing sign for the children.
Mm-hmm. Very nice.
Whoa, beautiful, hey?
So the question is that I'm still, when I'm sitting here in a class and you're breaking it down, so you're breaking it down.
Yes.
if I'm looking at this for myself,
Okay,
still no way of
excellent.
actually figuring it
Moshe,
out.
I'm so glad you asked that question. So what we're going to do now is as follows. When you look at the Gemara, it jumps up at us, and we look at this page in front of us, and it just appears as a sea of words. There's no punctuation. And because there's no punctuation, it's almost like a word chaos. And what we want to do is we want to allow, from this word chaos, we want to allow structure and clarity to emerge. So how do we do that? In order for us to do that, we need to impose or discover within the pre-existing apparent chaos where the structure lies. And in order to do that, we need to define when parts begin and when they end. So we need to have a defining component. We need to have names to call each and every part of the sugya. Okay? Once I've got those names, I will know, oh, this is a statement. It begins here, it ends here. Oh, this is a difficulty. It begins here, it ends here. Oh, this is a question. It begins here, it ends. Oh, this is an answer. And by doing so, by having the names, will allow me to categorize
Meaning the names of the rabbi?
the names of the functional parts of the sugya. The structure, meaning just like this watch has got little pieces and they all fit together. And by understanding how they all fit together, I understand how the watch works. Every sugya has got different parts which fit together, and by understanding what the parts are and how they fit together, I understand how the sugya works. So the first thing I need to know is what are the parts? And then I can start to figure out, well, where do those parts appear in the sugya? Okay? Okay, so what we'll do, hopefully tomorrow, is I'll give you an introduction to what those parts are, and or perhaps different. Perhaps I'll give you an introduction now to what those parts are, and then in the half an hour following we can figure out how they manifest in our Gemara. Okay? Great. The Ramchal, Reb Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, who's known famously for his works, Mesilas Yesharim and the Path of the Upright and Derech Hashem, he wrote many, many different works. Many of them were on Kabbalah. But one of the works he wrote was a book called Derech Tevunos. Derech Tevunos is the Ramchal's book on how to learn Gemara. The Ramchal wrote a book on how to learn Gemara. And in that book, he systemizes the Talmud. And he says that any part of the Talmud, and this is an amazing gift, any part of the Talmud can only comprise of one of 7 primary elements of debate. Meaning in every single sugya, it will only be doing 7 things, and not necessarily all of those 7 things, but the only things it could do would be those 7 things. And those 7 things are the primary components of every single debate. Every single debate can comprise of either all or a number of these things. And this is how it begins. The first thing the debate begins with, and this is almost inevitably how a debate will begin, is with a statement. First, there's a statement, because then you have something to question. Statement, presentation of a new idea. Then the Gemara will go to analyze it. Now, statement is the first primary element of debate, and there's 7 of them. The following 6 are as follows. Number 2 is a kasha. A kasha is a difficulty. The Gemara will say, 1 second. How can you say that the Mishnah is telling me about mitzvahs, tzrichas kavana? Maybe it's a kasha. So one of the second one, first is a statement, then there's a kasha, which is creating a difficulty in any of the previous stages. Okay? Another way of questioning is a question. This is number 3. A question is not a difficulty, it's a search for information. For example, if I ask you a question, what's the time? It's not a problem. I have no problem. I just don't know. Not knowing is not a problem. It's a lack of understanding. It's a lack of knowledge. So if I lack knowledge, let me ask for it. Sometimes the Gemara just lacks knowledge. For example, sometimes the Gemara will ask the question, Mino Hanimili, which means there's a Mishnah or a Brisa, and the Gemara will say, Mino Hanimili, what's a scriptural source to this Brisa? Mino Hanimili. It doesn't have a problem, it just doesn't know. Statement, kasha, difficulty, question. Just ask information. If the information is asked, it can be answered with an answer. So the 4th element of debate is an answer. The 5th is what's called a teretz, or a resolution. that resolves a difficulty. So you've got a statement, a difficulty, a question, an answer gives you an answer, gives you the information of a question, and a resolution provides you've solved the problem that the kasha has created. The sixth element of debate is a raya. It's a proof. A proof is a support. The way you create a support, it's a very good way of understanding what a support is. What is a proof? How does a proof work? Ben, how's your hip? Is it healed?
Not fully, but it's definitely better than it was a week and a half ago.
Do you feel strong enough to stand on that chair just there?
Yeah. Just stand on the chair.
Stand on the chair. What I want you to do is I want you to lean on me. Lean on me. Put your weight on me. Lean on me. Sounds like a song, but it's just what you're doing. Okay. Lean on me. You're not leaning on me. Just lean on me. Oh, excellent.
Okay.
So now, when he leans on me, if I move, and I'm not going to do it, don't worry. If I move, what happens to Ben?
Boom.
He comes tumbling down. What's the relationship between me and Ben, apart from being good friends, in this movement? How are we related? I am to Ben what a proof is to a statement. Meaning, I'm supporting him. If I move, he falls. You following me?
Nice.
That means a proof demonstrates a weakness of a statement that's not self-standing. And the more proofs you require, the more it indicates that there's problems with the statement, that it needs more and more support. The more scaffolding you need, the weaker the building.
How do you differentiate though all these different things?
Excellent question. I've got one more and then I'll go to your question. The last one is, so we have a statement, a kasha, a question, a teretz,
Proof.
a raya, sorry. Statement, kasha, question. Answer, teretz, raya, proof. And the final one is stira. A stira is a conflict. It's a contradiction. A contradiction is you've got this text, you've got that text, and they're equally weighted. That's great, they're equally weighted. The problem is, when you put them together, they clash.
Is that a kasha?
That's a stira. A kasha is when I look at you and say, you have a problem. A stira is when I've got this, that's good. If I look at that by itself, it's fine. If I look at that by itself, it's fine. Then I put them together and they're smashed.
But why do they have to be put together?
Well, because, excellent, it's assumed that they're of the same authorship. So let's say Rava says one statement here, and then Rava says another statement there. That's true, and that's true. But when you put them together, they contradict each other. That's a contradiction. Contradiction is when the same source says two contrary things. That's different from a kasha where I have a problem with you. Why did you say that? You with me? Okay. So these are what's called the seven primary elements of debate. Now the problem is, well, how do you spot them? How do you know when the Gemara switches from one to another? Ravina and Rav Ashi, the redactors of the Gemara, did something quite astounding. They compiled a set of what we call keywords or signpost words, which when you spot them in the Gemara, they will tell you that the text is about to change direction. And by learning those key words, you can go to a brand new sugya that you've never seen, and you'll be able to discover the skeletal structure just by simply finding the keywords. So, for example, examples of keywords. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, I know what's happening afterwards is a brisa. Mino Hanimili, where do these words come from? I know that previously there was an oral source, and what's going to come afterwards is a scriptural source, because the words Mino Hanimili is where's the source to the above oral law in the written Torah. So I know what came before is oral, and what's coming afterwards is written. Eisvei, Meisvei, Mosiv is a kasha from one or multiple Amoraim against another based on a scriptural or Tanaic source, which means I know what came before, I know what's coming afterwards. There's a whole list of these. As we go through the Gemara, when I see one of those keywords, I'm going to sing and dance and tell you what the keyword is and what its function is in the context of the sugya, so that when you have it, you can put it onto your keyring, and then you can unlock Shas. Incredible. And that set of keywords is consistent. Doesn't matter if you're learning brachas or tumura, it's consistent. So it's almost a shortcut to getting competency and independence in the study of the Talmud.
These were added by the Amorim, these words?
The Gemara is written by the Amoraim. The Gemara was compiled, was redacted by Ravina and Rav Ashi. They were at the tail end of the Amoraim. They compiled and collected all the discussions that occurred in the study houses of Babylon, and they arranged them according to Mishnahs. Step number 1. They arranged them in a way that they deleted crucial background information, left the sentences incomplete, didn't spell out the logic, didn't quote the sources, used obscure language, in order that you should become a participant in the process and develop your own set of cognitive skills, as we've said many times before.
Yeah.
But they made it easier.
Right. But they did, like this is a document this is a page of a book that is specifically designed, specifically like this page. Every word on this page is designed to help you understand everything that's also specifically designed in this block right here. So like, even though there's no, these two rabbis, I don't remember their names.
Ravina
right?
and Rav Ashi.
Ravina and Rav Ashi, right? They still had a vision as to how to codify, in some ways, each part of the Gemara. No?
The codify is the wrong word. It's not
There's
codify.
a code embedded in the page, so when you understand the code, then you can analyze it properly. That's what you're trying to say.
What I mean by codify is that like when you go to any store and you buy a page of Talmud, every single page, like if you go like 5 different stores, 5 different pages of Talmud, they're all going to look exactly the same. Like this page.
Right. True.
Yeah.
True.
So meaning like
this page is a very new invention. This page was, first of all, the Amoraim lived long before the printing press.
Right.
And there's no precedent in the times of the Amoraim for the written texts having any particular form.
Right.
This particular version is called the Vilna Shas, printed by the brothers in Widow Ram, and it's become the standard text that we use and have been using for the last 300 years.
Right.
But it's very recent.
Well, I guess my question is that like, at what point was this section right here non-changeable? When did everybody agree that this is exactly what every piece of Gemara that you ever open up is going to be?
Right. In other words, when did we finally, essentially, when did the Talmud get sealed?
Yes.
435.
435.
The year 435. By Ravina and Rav Ashi, there was another like 65 years where there were extra bits added in until the year 500 by what was called the Savaroim.
Okay.
But the Amoraim, which is a period of stages after the Amoraim, but essentially in 435, that's when Ravina and Rav Ashi said, okay, this is a text and now we'll work with it. Just for the next 65 years, there were like a few more additions, but like not that kind of fundamental and basic.
Okay. I see.
Okay?
You gotta make flashcards on those words.
There are flashcards. You can actually get, there's a person called Rabbi Yitzhak Frank, who's written a book called Introduction to I've forgotten the name of the book, but something about Gemara. It's got like a rainbow on the front.
I think it's a classic book.
Oh.
It's classic.
That's a classic book.
Wait, you're saying the practical guide to study Talmud? Or
Something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that, and he goes through all the keywords, and then he gives a very, very well, excellently articulated descriptions of what they do, and now they're printed on a single card, so you can get like a laminated card which has got all of them on it. So it's very important to know this.